Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we begin, I would like to thank Dr. Lynch and our current administration and Board of Ed members for attending tonight, as well as our community members, both here and at home. I would also like to thank our candidates, Leslie Danino, Shannon Kelly, Courtney Knack, and Sean Murray, for their participation and interest in serving on Lynbrook's Board of Education. Lastly, tonight's event will be moderated by the Nassau Region PTA, and I would like to thank them and our moderator, Kate Kelly, and timekeeper, June and Ella, for their assistance. And now I would like to introduce Kate Kelly from Nassau Region PTA.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the Lynbrook Council of PTAs for choosing Nassau Region PTA to conduct tonight's Candidates Forum. I would also again like to introduce June Inella, who will be the timekeeper for tonight's Candidates Forum, also from Nassau Region. I'd like to remind anyone to please silence your phones for our night tonight, and just a couple of things to go over. Am I? Okay. Each candidate will have 3 minutes opening statement. We will start in the order the candidates are seated, starting with Leslie. The questions will rotate according to seating order, second candidate, then third candidate, and we'll continue in that order. The second question will start with the third candidate, and we'll ask the last question tonight at 8:20. If it looks like we need more time, we'll talk to the candidates at that point. Candidates will then have an opportunity to do a closing statement, which will also be 3 minutes, and we'll start in the opposite order. So the candidates tonight, I'd like to introduce them. Leslie Danino, Shannon Kelly, Courtney Knack, and Sean Murray. Just a couple of reminders as you watch and listen to this forum. Things to think ahead is consider which issues are most important to you and jot down what you'd like to know from each candidate. Tonight is just a high-level overview, and I encourage each of you, if you have specific questions, to get to know each of the candidates individually. So with that, I'm going to turn the opening statements over to Leslie Danino.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the Nassau Region of PTA, and in particular, the Lynbrook Council PTA, for organizing this essential event. Your dedication to fostering community engagement is commendable, and I'm truly honored to be here tonight, both in person and virtually, addressing you all. As I stand before you, seeking re-election, I am reminded of the core values that have guided me throughout my tenure. Chief among these values is fiscal responsibility. I firmly believe in the prudent management of resources to ensure that every dollar entrusted to us serves the best interests of our students, their families, and the community. Moreover, my involvement as a member of both the Audit and Facilities Committees underscores my commitment to transparency and the enhancement of our educational infrastructure. Through these roles, I've worked tirelessly to promote accountability and to ensure that our schools provide safe and conducive environments for learning. In the time that we have together tonight, I hope to convey not just my record of achievements, but also my unwavering dedication to serving our community. I look forward to discussing our shared vision for the future of education in our district and the concrete steps we can take together to realize it. Once again, thank you all for your presence and participation tonight. Your engagement is vital to the success of our collective endeavor, and I am deeply grateful for your ongoing support. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Shannon?
Good evening. My name is Shannon Kelly, and I'd like to ask for your vote to serve as a trustee on the Board of Education for the Lynbrook School District. First and foremost, I'd like to again thank our Lynbrook Council of PTAs for hosting this event and the Nassau Region PTA for moderating it. I'd like to thank those of you here in person and those of you watching from home for your continued commitment to the shared excellence of the Lynbrook schools. I'd also like to thank the 3 people sitting up here with me this evening, Leslie and Sean for their outstanding service on our Board of Education, and Courtney for her willingness to throw her hat in this ring. Sitting up here before you and putting ourselves out there to ask for your vote is a daunting task. Many have asked, why you and why now? Here's my answer. For the last 18 years, I have been the parent of a Lynbrook owl. I raised my children on my own, and as a single working parent, they were my sole focus. My family benefited from the excellence of the Lynbrook schools and the willing volunteerism of many others. My children were 3 radically different learners, and I was very involved in their educational journeys here at Lynbrook. I'm incredibly proud of the people they are today and recognize that our schools played a huge part in their growth. My experiences as a parent will make me an excellent trustee, as I have a deep understanding of our schools, from our special education services to the opportunities we make possible for our gifted students. My professional experiences in the Malvern School District will also make me an excellent trustee. I'm familiar with changing academic standards, unfunded mandates, income streams, shared services, school budgets, and how to navigate the many offices at the New York State Education Department. So why now? Quite simply, I want to give back to the school district and the community which has given my own family so much. I want to put my analytical skills to use for the betterment of our schools. I want my experience as a parent to not only inform my decisions, but also make me a more receptive listener to those who have concerns. With my youngest headed to college in September, I will have the time to commit myself to our Board of Education, the time to do the research, to reach out to our local and state officials, the time to meet with administration, my fellow board members, and the time to speak with community members. I'm very good at being driven by a guiding question. For more than half my life, that question has been what is in the best interest of my children. As a trustee on the Lynbrook School Board of Education, that question will be, what is in the best interest of the students we serve? Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Courtney?
Hi, everybody. So if you are unfamiliar with me, my name is Courtney Knack, and it's a pleasure to be here tonight. Thank you so much to my fellow candidates, the Board of Ed, the Nassau County PTA for moderating, and it's really just such a pleasure to be here. I feel like I'm home, honestly. I graduated in the class of 2001, as did my husband, and it is hilarious sitting around and looking like that's where we ate lunch. But that said, it's really the reason why we came back to Lynbrook schools to raise our children here. We had such rich, wonderful experiences in this district, educationally, socially, and that's really what all parents want. They want their own best experiences and more for their kids. And I knew, my husband knew too, that by coming back here, that's what we would be bestowing onto our children. Between my marriage, my profession, so much of who I am comes back to my experience in Lynbrook schools. When I was here, I loved my science teachers and I loved my science classes, and now I'm a high school science teacher. I love sports in high school, and coaching has been a big part of my teaching career and the volunteerism that I do in Lynbrook. So when I think about my own experience as a student here looking back and how special that was, I know there's a way that we can look forward and bridge into the future together as a board, as a team, and try to just continue our tradition of excellence that Lynbrook Schools has always provided, while also being really mindful of all of the different people that live here. Not everyone has kids in the district anymore. Not everybody sends their kids to public school, and we really need to keep all of the constituents in mind. I look forward to getting into more of my ideas and answering your questions tonight. I also want to stress I have 3 kids in the district right now, and I'm in it for the long haul. My little one is in 1st grade, my middle one's in 3rd, my oldest is in 5th. So wish me luck on that 6th grade transition. But I really look forward to all of the experiences that they are going to have in Lynbrook schools, and hopefully being able to provide all kids with experiences like that. So I have a lot of ideas regarding technology, budgeting, and I look forward to addressing those things tonight. Please come out for Lynbrook Public Schools on May 21st, vote for the budget, and vote for Courtney Knack. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. Sean?
Good evening. My name is Sean Murray, and I hope to continue representing the Lynbrook community on our Board of Education. Let me begin by thanking the Lynbrook Council of PTAs and the Nassau Region PTA for hosting this event. Our country's most valuable resource is a well-informed electorate, so I also thank all of you for attending this evening or watching at home or viewing it later on when it's recorded. Finally, I want to thank each of my fellow candidates for their commitment to supporting this district as well. I bring the perspective of a parent to all that I do. I have students in 10th, 9th, and 6th grade at Lynbrook High School and North Middle School after having attended West End. My wife Laura and I both grew up in Malvern, and we made our home here in Lynbrook about 17 years ago. So I am very well invested in this great community, and I want the best for my children's future, but more importantly, the future of all Lynbrook families. One of my core values is servant leadership, and in addition to my professional leadership roles, I have served as a Cub Scout Den leader. I served on the board of the Lynbrook Excellence in Education Foundation. I currently serve as an assistant scoutmaster with Lynbrook Troop 336 of the Boy Scouts, and I also serve my colleagues here on the Board of Education. During my 3 years as trustee, I have been active as a member of the policy and the facilities committees. I have attended several New York State School Boards Association workshops to better ourselves, and I was the delegate of the district to the New York State School Boards Annual Association meeting, and that's a place at which our statewide policies, advocacy positions are debated and determined. As I recently shared on my Facebook group, I have a set of core values that guide my decision-making both professionally and as a trustee. Those values have been strengthened by each of the roles that I've had in my professional career, and all of them in which I serve students. I started my career over 2 decades ago as an elementary classroom teacher. I've been a school leader for the past 17 years of my career, leading at the building level as an elementary and middle school principal, and at the district level as a director of curriculum and instruction, and now assistant superintendent. In those 4 different school districts, each of those experiences broadened my perspective. And more importantly, in each of those experiences, I learned how to listen to, appreciate, honor, and truly consider all the people affected by the decisions I made. As a school board member, we're compelled to use our perspective to consider those effects on the decisions we make on students, on parents, on taxpayers, the staff, and our administrative team. I have the practice in making those kinds of decisions based on those broad perspectives. And why do I want to continue serving as part of our team? My entire career has been dedicated to public education, and I really just feel like I can share all my experiences with this community and help make it better. I believe all students are entitled to skills, habits, and I will continue to do all those things for Lynbrook.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you all for your opening statements. We're going to move on with questions. And just a reminder for the audience, we cannot ask any questions that are directed towards a personal candidate, so I'm going to try to cover as much as I can. There's a lot here. We'll cover as many topics as we can, but again, if we don't ask your questions, I encourage you to reach out to the candidates directly. So first question, we'll start with Shannon. What ideas would you bring as a board member in hiring a more diverse staff to accurately represent students here in Lynbrook?
So I think when we talk diversity, you have to realize Lynbrook has a lot of it, and it's a rich tradition, and it's not just about the color of our skin. I'm the parent of 2 biracial children, and I think I can say the way we get the best, most diverse staff is to be the best district we can possibly be. I think you hire the best person for the job by looking at opportunities for professional development for our teachers, by supporting our teachers in all that they do in their classrooms, by listening to the concerns of teachers and being responsive, as I know we've been over the last 18 years that I've been a parent in district. I think we get the most diverse and the best staff simply by being the best district that we can be.
Thank you, Shannon. Courtney, do you need me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Sure. What ideas would you bring as a board member in hiring a more diverse staff to accurately represent students in Lynbrook?
I think it would be really important that more than anything else, we really do need to have a broad applicant pool when we're hiring teachers. It can be really difficult to hire teachers in this day and age. I'm sure many of us are aware there's just a teacher shortage nationally in New York State and in Long Island. And I think for Lynbrook to have a better edge in hiring, and including for more diverse applicants, likely increasing partnerships with local colleges and universities, having really strong student-teacher placement and increasing those partnerships with teachers in training will attract more young and vibrant teachers into our district. And as student teachers, it kind of gives us a preview into who we could be hiring. So I think that that would be one way to enrich our applicant pool and then potentially get more diverse applicants in terms of life experiences and other ways that kids in Lynbrook can see that diversity in their own classrooms.
Thank you, Courtney. Sean, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, thank you. As my fellow candidate said, the teachers that we hire have to come from the pool of applicants that we get. But I also think it's important for us to define diversity more broadly than I think a lot of people define it. I think that diversity is only partially based on someone's cultural or ethnic background. I think that we also need to look for diversity of ideas and viewpoints, diversities of backgrounds, diversities of where people grew up, where they went to school, how long they've been teaching, where they've taught before. And I think if we really carefully comb through our resumes, and I know this is something that our administrative team does work at, to try to find that diamond in the rough or that needle in a haystack sometimes, to find the best teacher that we can put in front of our students on a given day. And that person may not be as different as some of the other teachers here, but I think once we find the best candidates out there and we become the best school district that we can be, we're just gonna automatically have more people applying for our jobs here, and the more people we have applying, the more diverse candidates we can choose from.
Thank you, Sean. Leslie, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, I haven't, thanks. I kind of want to build, everyone had a little bit of what I was planning to say on what Mr. Murray says. The most important thing is to find the best candidate for the job. And I speak as an educator for more years than I want to tell you. But I think of teaching reading, right? Some of us are from the whole language, and now we're from the science of reading. So we take a little of everything, and we think of the best practices. And if we come from diverse practice, we learn a lot from each other. So everyone needs to have diverse backgrounds, and we really need the strongest candidates. And it's also, we have to build upon everybody. We're looking at gifted in our district and talking about and bringing our gifted program to all, because our learners are diverse and we want to build upon the strengths in this district. So that's something we need to look at here, is how we can do that by bringing diversity in all the ways that we can. And we go to fairs where we're looking for the best applicants for our schools, whether it be on the administrative level or teachers. And there's something in the state called Take a Look at Teaching, where we're bringing college students in to partner with teachers so that they could see, so we can eliminate this teacher shortage, and they can learn from the educators in our building to see what a wonderful profession it is, and they can want to come to a school like Lynbrook and be part of our staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Next question, we'll start with Courtney. What do you think of the district's response to addressing mental health issues, and do you have any suggestions, ideas moving forward?
I think that in terms of our district's mental health efforts, I really do applaud all of the initiatives that we've been taking. I know that we have recently engaged in the Ruler program, which we have relatively recently subscribed to. One thing that, just to reveal about myself, I'm a very data-driven individual. And after having run the ruler program for a little bit, I would like to see overall just parent satisfaction, student satisfaction. Are the professionals in the building pleased with the program? Is it fleshing out the way that they thought it would? And in addition, I also wonder if we are employing enough staff for our neediest kids. I really would hope that we have like a full-time social worker in every building, a full-time school psychologist, and I don't know if that is feasible, but there is a need in this day and age for that. And I would like to get some feedback on the ruler program that we've been using for mental health in our district, and perhaps increasing the professional development for our mental health professionals in the district. You know, ruler is a new program, and if we assess that, is it enough? Is it, coming together in the way that we were hoping for kids? So I am really pleased with the initiative our district has taken, but like anything else, it has to be an ongoing conversation where we're collecting data and seeing how these programs are working out for our kids.
Thank you, Courtney. Sean, do you need me to repeat the question?
Please, thank you.
Sure. What do you think of the district's response to addressing mental health issues, and do you have any suggestion, ideas moving forward?
Sure. Well, I can tell you from the seat that I've had on the board for the last 3 years that students' social emotional well-being has been the primary factor in a lot of the staffing changes and decisions that we've made during that time. In fact, a lot of the federal COVID grant money that we received as a district was used to increase mental health staff. And as a board, we worked over time to ensure that those positions could be rolled into the general operating budget so we didn't lose them when the grants ran out, which happened to a lot of districts. So that is definitely something that the district has prioritized over time. Another shift the district has made is putting all the mental health staff together in one place in the high school. So there's sort of a hub for students to go to when they need support and help, and I think that's been working really well. I think one of the changes or suggestions that I brought based on my experience in other districts was the Sources of Strength program. I had the fortune of attending Challenge Day a few years ago, and it's a wonderful, mighty experience, and the conversation I had with teachers afterwards was, but it never sustains. It's a great day, and then it goes away. And I had suggested that they look into the Sources of Strength program, which is a student-run program that does last because the students make it last and continue it. And thankfully, the district was able to get a grant to bring that program in this year. And while we haven't seen the results of it yet, based on what I've seen in other districts, I'm really hopeful and excited about what that's going to be able to do for our students' mental health long-term.
Thank you, Sean. Leslie, would you like me to repeat the question? What do you think of the district's response to addressing mental health issues, and do you have any suggestion, ideas moving forward?
Sure. Mental health is always at the forefront. You can't learn if you can't focus and you're in distress. The district is really cognizant and has done a lot of great things, such as Sources of Strength, No Place for Hate, Ruler. This year, they brought in the Sources of Strength, which really focuses on peer-to-peer, suicide prevention. Also, there's a Tier 3 support that we are using with Central Nassau Guidance. And what that provides is psychiatric and social work for more intense support. That's something that I would like to see if there's something, if that was needed more, if that's something that's more available, because those appointments are hard to come by. So that's something. Also, the high school social workers visit with the 9th and 10th grade health classes, so they're laying eyes on those students to make sure to discuss risk factors with those students. The support staff are allowed to have drop-ins with students. They manage the mental health needs. I think they're really hands-on. I know from firsthand experience with my own students, they really make connections with the students and they feel they can depend on them, which is really wonderful. And there really have been changes in the guidance department as well, which is part of that. So they are meeting with the students earlier. They're getting to know them, to lay eyes on these children. The more people that get to know the students and see. So if there is an issue, that they can just walk in and pick up and know, hey, something's not right today. and they can act on it immediately, just making those connections. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Shannon, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, thank you. So Lynbrook has done so much in terms of social emotional learning and mental health supports. One of my children took full advantage of not only the guidance department, but the social workers in the school, just to address issues of feeling different or having a tough day or struggling in a class. That child is now a social worker out in Seattle working with the teen population. I have every confidence that we will continue to be responsive to the mental health needs of our students. If you look last year, there was a lot of talk about what were perceived as deficiencies in the guidance department. Now, I have to say, my personal experience as a parent has always been overwhelmingly positive, not only with guidance here at the high school, but going down even to the elementary schools, where there was a program called Banana Splits for kids who felt different because they had lost a parent due to death or divorce. So mental health has always been at the forefront of Lynbrook. And as our society changes and as these mental health issues grows, our services have grown with that need. I think the biggest indicator of this is that we are currently hiring a director of school counseling and social work. The posting, if you haven't seen it, is unbelievable and shows just how responsive Lynbrook is to the needs of our students. It's a second layer of overlay. We have professionals that not only can deal with our students, who can talk to our students, they also liaise with our teachers. I'm a teacher myself. I know we all come from an educational background. You need those professionals so that you can reach out to them when you're concerned about a student, and you can really get the guidance as to how to deal with a certain issue, or frankly, how to bring in supports when you're not comfortable dealing with it yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean, we'll start the next question with you. Security, hot topic in the nation. What security policies would you like to see addressed or changed to increase security and monitoring movements of students, and your thoughts on armed security?
Sure. As a building leader and district leader, literally my number one responsibility, even before learning, is keeping students safe and secure. And that's something that's been on my mind, obviously, for almost 2 decades. I think that our district does a lot of good things around security and safety for our students. We have automated lockdown alarm systems. We have a full-time security consultant. We have shifted over to having in-house security, moved away from contract security because we felt that those people would know our students better and be better equipped to handle all sorts of emergencies. One of the things that I would like to see, and I think would make our schools even safer, is a system by which to manage the ins and outs of the students, especially with the open campus at the high school. I think it's important for us to know who is in the building and who is out of the building at a given moment. When something goes wrong, what can we do for them? I do know another concern is communicating with those students who are off campus in an emergency. And thankfully, we're moving over to Parent Square in the very near future, and that's going to allow us to communicate with students who are off campus much better. As far as armed guards go, I did a lot of research into that, and I know that there's people who have strong opinions on each side, but the research tells us that the armed guards do not actually make schools safer. They make people feel more secure, and there is a value in feeling more secure. But they don't actually increase the safety of students or decrease the likelihood of an unfortunate situation taking place.
Leslie, would you like me to repeat the question? What security policies would you like to see addressed or changed to increase security and monitor movements of students, as well as your thoughts on armed guards?
Okay. Regarding security, I know Mr. Lynch will tell you that I call often to say, oh, are we working on this? But one thing I can say is that I'm very open and have people contact me when they have a concern. And I've been concerned, as Mr. Murray said, about the ins and the outs of the high school and upgrading here and how children come in and out, and I observe myself. So I sit here, I represent the people in this community, and I represent the students and make sure, I feel it's my job to make sure they're safe on a daily basis. And it's wonderful, the security guards are great and they're vetted, but we need to know that everybody in and out of this building is where they belong. So if I see something and I'm concerned, I open my mouth and I say something. I'm not, a wallflower. So that's a concern of mine, but we have a really well-trained head of security, and we take their advice. As far as armed guards, as Mr. Murray says, it makes you feel safe. There are times when things happen in this country where I say, would that make me feel safer? In New York State, they can't come in the school with their weapons. So, there are times where I've been very anti-gun, and there are times I'm like, well, I'm scared, like everybody. So I've flip-flopped about 1,000,000 times, as I'm sure many of you have. But I take the recommendation of who we've trusted and who we've hired according to that. And right now, I think our schools, I know when our school district goes to Nassau County, we are very safe. And our plan is really good. I can tell you I teach in a neighboring district, and I had a meeting. I went to my superintendent once, and I said, can we do some of these things? Because I'm really proud of the way Lynbrook handles security. They do a great job, but we can always improve things. Like we're saying at the high school, there is room for improvement, and we hear from the constituents and say, this is what we need to do, and we want to do it.
Thank you. Shannon, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, thank you. Okay. So when you walk through Lynbrook High School, what's always amazed me, and it's been here for years, and I'm starting with the high school because that's where I am most often these days, the locked doors on the classroom. We have security guards at every building. We have in most of our buildings, I can't speak to one of them, but the dual entry doors. If you noticed when you came in this evening, I had to come pick up, thank you PTA, my senior's lawn sign, but I was not allowed in the building. I had to first buzz in at the door. The security guard let me into the first entryway. Then I had to show my ID to even get into the second entryway to get my sign. Everything is monitored. Within the rooms, the students are there, and I agree with everything Leslie and Sean said about with the open campus at the high school, how do we know who's here and who's not? I know my own child, when she's found out through friends that there's a lockdown or a lockout, it's daunting, particularly if she's off campus and out of the building. I will say, I think, one, we do so much with the social emotional learning that we're preventing, God forbid, an active shooter situation in the building where it's one of our students. We're looking at these children from kindergarten. We're keeping our eye on them. The other thing is we do have, my understanding is, and from what I've seen through social media from the school district, great partnerships with our police. Now that's both the Lynbrook Police and the Nassau County Police, because we know our schools aren't all within Lynbrook. With regard to armed guards, I do not think the research supports it. I do not think it's the right thing to do right now. I think we trust in the relationships we've built with local law enforcement, and we rely on or allow for the free flow of information in both directions whenever possible, particularly when there is a dangerous situation in our schools. Thank you.
Courtney, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, thank you, though. So I think that in agreement with all of the other candidates, I am really proud of a lot of the actual nuts and bolts of the security and measures that our district took on. The keypad doors, we have the blue exterior lights to warn people on the outside if there's a lockdown. I know we're also really working on improving the Wi-Fi coverage for staff phones so that in an emergency, staff can call out of the building. And if I may say, the security firm that our district works with is really impressive. All former, very experienced law enforcement officers, many former NYPD. When I look at their website, I feel really safe. And that might not be the opinion of everyone in our district, but that is mine. But I think one thing that we're maybe missing is that when we talk about keeping kids safe, it really comes down to knowing students and making them feel like they belong, building relationships with staff and each other. And I think there is a really significant, to Shannon's point, social emotional piece to this, that when kids feel emotionally safe and emotionally supported, that they are less likely to act out, and ultimately our entire building is safer. So to that end, I think not only shoring up with the keypads and the alarms and that stuff, but shoring kids up emotionally and knowing that school is an emotionally safe place for them individually will keep all of us safer. In terms of armed guards, like I said, I'm a data-driven person. I don't have any signal from the experts employed by Lynbrook School that that's a direction we should go. However, should that data change, I'm always open to new information. So for now, I'm going to trust the really excellent security experts we've hired. And should they say different, I'm all ears. Thank you.
Next question, Leslie, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on the district's plan to eliminate the Voyager program, and how do you see the district being able to meet the new needs of all students?
I knew this question was coming. So, years ago, sitting in negotiations as a teacher and a union member in Ralph Center, Dr. Johnson, who I love, I said to him, what happens if you lose a program? And he said, you never get it back in your time. Well, we're not losing a program because it is it's not coming off the budget. So that's something we need to be aware of. It is not coming off. So I think the way we need to look at it is this program is changing. It is not being taken off the budget. It is still the teacher is still there. It is changing. It is just going to look differently. So I am looking at it as it's almost expanding in a different way. And more children are going to have the experience of this wonderful teacher, and we are going to be able to tap into so many more students' gifted experiences. Because if we think about our country, we are gifted in so many ways. And we might have a student here who's gifted in music, and a child here who's gifted in art, and a student here who's gifted in math. But they're not all getting into that Voyager program now. So we're going to be able to reach those students. No student who is in that program now is not going to have that program. They will be continuing in it. And we're going to be able to reach more, in addition to looking at students who have high achieving scores and meeting them where they need to be in addition. So I'm looking at it as we're getting more.
Thank you, Leslie. Shannon, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, thank you. So after the last board meeting, I was upset with what I heard, but I didn't have enough information. So I reached out to Dr. Belekis, and he graciously agreed to meet with me. Those of you who read all the publications from the high school, you know my daughter's name, Nora Kane. She will graduate salutatorian of this class. She was in the Voyager program. What the district did for her was to craft an informal, individualized educational program that allowed her to explore her passions in math and physics. This board, and this speaks to why now is the right time for me to run, this board approved for her to take college classes, which began her freshman year in high school. She will head to California Institute of Technology with 54 college credits in math and physics. We're not doing away, as Leslie pointed out. It's not that Voyager is disappearing. By moving to the modules, every child will be exposed to enrichment material. By every child taking the COGAT exam, which I took back in St. Raymond's a long, long time ago. There weren't dinosaurs, though. But every child will have the opportunity to potentially be identified as a child who is gifted, who might not be picked up just by the teacher seeing it. What this allows is for all children in the district to receive the enrichment. And for those children like my daughter, who are not unicorns, Someone referred to her as a unicorn. She absolutely is not. There are other children as bright as her and as driven as her and who could benefit from a program like hers. This allows for those children to get what they need. Thank you.
Courtney, didn't mean to repeat the question?
No, thank you. So at the recent board meeting, maybe to the displeasure of some, I was pretty vocal in my disappointment in the discontinuing of the Voyager program. Personally, like I said, to me, I need the data, I need to see numbers, and the data that was cited at that meeting only went back to 2018. There were years Voyager didn't even run because of the pandemic, and then enrollment was even further limited after that because of ongoing concerns about COVID and putting your kids on a bus and having to go to West End or whatever the case may be. And I needed more. I needed more data to be convinced that ending that program was right for our district. And I know you might balk at saying it's ending. I love the enrichment for all. I do want that for all children. I don't know why it can't be both. I think that this program serves a really small niche group of kids. It's up to our district how small that group is. It used to not be that small. It used to be 10 to 20 kids per elementary school in their home buildings with teachers and faces they knew. And perhaps instead of ending this program, retooling it, capturing more families, making them feel more at home in this program, extending the numbers so that if one family declines, the next kid on the list could have the spot. I think there are ways that we can do both and meet everybody's needs. But for now, until I get a model of this new program, what is this gonna look like? Is it push in, push out? How are we identifying the kids? What's it like for a first level learner, second level learner, gifted students? What are we doing for them? Until I see all of that information, I'm not sold on ending the Voyager program. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. Sean, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, thank you. I invite all of you to go back and watch the recording of that last Board of Education meeting when this was discussed, and you'll see exactly how I feel about the program and how our district shift in that. What I will say is the day after that meeting, I know that Dr. Balekis met with a group of parents on the curriculum committee and additional parents whose students are involved or have been involved in the Voyager program. And he went into more detail on exactly how we're going to allow more enrichment for more students through the Enrichment for All models, also known as Flight School, and meet the needs of those students who truly have unique and special learning needs, no different than students with a learning disability or a speech language impairment. And those needs have to be met, and our district has an obligation to do so. I do know that after that meeting, the parents whose children are going to be most affected by these shifts in the program felt satisfied with his explanation. But as I said at the last meeting, I will continue to ask how it's going, because if the shifts that we're making are not meeting the needs of not only all of our students through giving them enrichment opportunities they never would have had before, but also those students who truly need that special learning environment that the Voyager program provided for them. If those needs aren't being met appropriately, I think we will have to go back to the table and discuss how to do that.
Did I die? Okay, perfect. Thank you. I just want to say our candidates are doing an amazing job keeping on time. I just want to say. Usually I have to stop people over and over. You guys are doing a great job. Thanks, June. We're going to go back to Shannon for the next question. What are your opinions on the technology we are using in Lynbrook, and how responsive do you think the school district is in today's technology needs?
Okay. So, I'm old. That's not a secret. Technology is forever changing. I do think it's here to stay, but I think we do need to balance our use of technology with the fundamental skills that our children need. You look at instructional delivery on the tablets. But then, fourth graders might be taking a paper-based test. How adept are they at holding a pencil? Or have they gotten so used to a stylus that suddenly handwriting becomes a very significant issue for them? I think, like anything else, everything in moderation. I think we need to make sure our technology usage is age appropriate. I think we need to certainly look at what's changing in technology. So for instance, ChatGPT. I am by no means an expert, but I am on the board of one of our 501c3 STEM organizations here on the island. And SAWA is the name of it, South Asian American Women's Alliance. It's a STEM association. Our essay competition this year was on the use of ChatGPT in schools, and it debated the pros and the cons. We had 165 high school students submit essays. It was astounding to see those who said it could be a springboard to those who said it will just incentivize cheating. With regard to the technology we're using here in the schools, again, I think most important, it needs to be age appropriate. There needs to be a continuum. It needs to be reliable, and certainly we accomplish that, at least in part, through the use of our technology reserves. But I think as the technology changes and grows almost daily, we have to be mindful, we have to keep our eye on it and constantly evaluate it. Thank you.
Courtney, do you need me to repeat the question?
Please.
I just have to find the question. What are your opinions on the technology we are using in Lynbrook, and how responsive do you think the school district is in today's technology's needs?
Thank you. I think that in consideration of technology changing all the time, that like anything else in education, the pendulum swung really far to the end of incorporation of constant technology use in a lot of classrooms. Some teachers use it more often than others, but it is time that we do some sort of technology audit. What are teachers using regularly? What is working for them? What is not? You know, kindergartners have laptops now. Are they using them? Do we need individual devices for K-2? Is there a way for our district to save money on that if that is not something that's being widely used in a way that justifies that expenditure? And I think having a tech developer in every building, some sort of stipend position where a staff member who has a lot of expertise in educational technology gets to train their peers on different platforms, maybe a lunch and learn on AI, and how you can use AI in a variety of ways in a classroom. Just to know that we want to use these tools, is there someone that I can call their extension who can train me on it? So with that, I think more on the student side of things, I think in terms of technology, we do need to think about the technology that's in their pocket and in their backpack. And I think getting an idea of the effects of smartphone use in our school district would be really useful in sort of understanding, is this technology interrupting the learning process in such a way that our school district needs to have a better handle on kids' smartphone use during the school day? Thanks.
Thank you, Courtney. Sean, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, thank you. What I'm waiting for, honestly, is the day when we don't talk about technology as another thing in schools, because we recognize that it is fully and appropriately integrated throughout. People would never ask you, do you use technology at work? Because the assumption is to do most of the jobs that are out there, you're using a lot of different tools. I also think technology needs to be defined much more broadly than just a laptop or a tablet. And our district is preparing students for their futures when they go into the workforce, whatever that workforce may be, or they become an entrepreneur. Even the military is extraordinarily dependent on technology and communications and things like that. So we need to make sure that our students are ready for that. And I do know that our technology committee and team are constantly looking for ways to do that better. One of those things was after the pandemic, or during the pandemic, bringing in Schoology and Seesaw as learning management systems to help, again, that technology be more integrated in all that we do, and that's not everything we do. Yes, pencil and paper, students need to be able to use scissors and pencils and crayons and those things, but where appropriate, even kindergartners can be using the computer to create, to do things they wouldn't otherwise be able to do. I think that we are pretty good at using the SAMR model of making sure that technology is not just a replacement, but really doing things differently in our classrooms. And I think that's the key for the technology use here, is making sure it's doing things for kids they could not otherwise do without it.
Thank you, Sean. Leslie, do you need me to repeat the question? Sure. What are your opinions on technology we are using in Lynbrook, and how responsive do you think the school district is to today's technology's needs?
Technology, as a kindergarten teacher, technology is just a part of our everyday life. I think back to my grandmother who passed away last year at 104, who was on Facebook and Instagram, and it just became a part of her life. So it's, and then I think of my son who was home during COVID in kindergarten, who really doesn't like to read, and started reading on the programs available to him on his computer because he found books of interest. It just really opened up a whole new world to him. And, as a kindergarten teacher, it's not something I use very often, but there are books available to my students that I don't have in the library, they want to research something different. Click, there it is. Mr. McDermott does a wonderful job of staying on top of all of the changes. And technology we think of in this district also for security. Back to our security, cameras. And the upgrades that we've done here that our door ajar, so we know if door, that's all part of upgrading our technology that we're doing a wonderful job of doing here. We have a new digital art room, technology. Our drone program in this high school, technology. If you haven't seen it, you need to. Also, I really think it's important, and something that I think we need to start doing is really, some parents don't know how to go on and check where to find their students' assignments. We need to have some more parent training so parents can come in kindergarten and learn to see how to be a partner, because some parents are a little afraid, and that's why this question comes up year after year about technology. But it's really just, just like we use books all the time, technology is just here to stay. It's not going anywhere. But also our OWL Success Academy in the high school, it's wouldn't happen and be as successful if there was not technology as a part of it.
Thank you, Leslie. Courtney, we'll start the next question with you. Lynbrook Schools has a reputation of academic success. How do you envision the district expanding activities, programs for students while reconciling the uncertainty in state aid, constant state mandates, and having to heavily borrow from the reserves this year? It's a doozy. I can repeat it. Okay. We got a couple of budgets, so I tried my best to put it together. Lynbrook Schools has a reputation of academic success while keeping an eye on the budget. How do you envision the district expanding programs and activities for the students while reconciling the uncertainty in state aid, constant state mandates, and having to heavily borrow from the reserves this year?
In terms of academic success, that is something that Lynbrook has always been well known for, and making opportunities available for kids that would help to challenge them and grow. But in terms of cost, I think there are ways that we can better serve kids that want these academic challenges that are not that expensive. I did a lot of research into some of the AP courses that are offered in Lynbrook. It looks like, and again, this is based on our school district report card that only goes back to 2022. 2023 is not publicly available yet, but we don't offer AP Stat, we don't offer AP Macroeconomics, we don't offer AP Physics C, we don't offer AP Euro. those are courses that we just need staff members to teach. Almost everything from College Board is available. I have my own personal opinions of College Board as an AP teacher, but that is something that could allow for sustained academic success and pay off in the long run, because many schools do take those courses for credit without having to rely very heavily on significant funding.
Thank you. Sean, do you need me to repeat the question?
Yeah, let me hear it one more time so I
Okay.
can make sure I hit all the points.
Lynbrook Schools has a reputation of academic success. While keeping an eye on the budget, how do you envision the district expanding programs and activities for students while reconciling the uncertainty in state aid, constant state mandates, and having to heavily borrow from the reserves this year?
Sure. Well, the greatest challenge facing school districts as far as funding goes is the tax cap, which is supposedly 2%, but is actually tied somewhat to inflation, but no more than 2%. And in a lot of cases, for the last several years, inflation has actually been much higher than the tax cap that the district is allowed to expend. Great news for taxpayers, and I think it's important that we meet those needs, but it really does make it difficult for schools, and schools have to make choices. I don't know that we can expand necessarily. I think what we can do is choose the right programs. I think the way we do that is through surveying students, finding out what they're looking for, surveying colleges in the workforce, and find out what kinds of preparations they're looking for, so that we're not necessarily expanding all the programs we have here, because finances won't allow us to do that, but the programs that we're offering are the ones that our students need. And I think one of the most efficient ways for us to do that is through staff development. I think if we put a little money into staff development, it can go a long way into the kinds of courses that our teachers are able to teach and teach effectively. So what little money we are getting from New York State, I think that's a great way to spend that money, just to make our teachers more equipped to teach more different courses. And then from year to year, depending on the student's interests, needs, or what the workforce or college is looking for, we can adjust the courses that we offer here at the high school that way and stay within the budget that we're able to do.
Thank you, Sean. Leslie, would you like me to repeat the question? Sure. Lynbrook School has a reputation of academic success while keeping an eye on the budget. How do you envision the district expanding programs, activities for students while reconciling the uncertainty in state aid, constant state mandates, and having to heavily borrow from the reserves this year?
Okay, perfect. I want to address first the uncertainty in the state aid. So one thing that I think is really important is to speak to our legislators, and I encourage everybody to do that. So when the governor came out this year that she was cutting the foundation aid, so last year it was fully restored, and this year it was cut, and here we're good, and thank you to our business officials. They really do an amazing job, and we have reserves. Not every district does, and you see cuts. Look at Amityville and what's happening there. It's really scary. So, and as I said before, you lose a program, you never get it back, and you never see it. So we don't want that to happen. So what's really important is to make sure that we fight for our district and we put our money where our mouth is. And I do. I go to Albany and I fight and I talk to them and say, we can't do this. And I sit on the audit committee for our district to make sure I know what's happening. Also, looking into grants going forward. What about partnering with some colleges? I know we offer some Malloy courses here. Our teachers in our district are amazing, but looking at that, maybe there's some partnerships that some universities locally, and it could be more cost effective where we could add in some more. I know we do some with Malloy already, but that could be something we could look at. And fighting these unfunded mandates. It seems like there's just more and more every time you turn around. So that's something we also need to fight with the legislatures about. And, when they're passing the budgets, but the whole formula for foundation aids is outdated, and we need to make sure we're getting our fair share here in Lynbrook.
Thank you, Leslie. Shannon, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, thank you. By the
you.
third time I got it, it took me 3 times, though. So, here's my opportunity. Mr. Joel Press and I have not yet met. You are astounding, sir, at what you do. Because here's why. Governor Hochul threatened to cut state aid. So this district had to craft a budget with a crystal ball, literally, not cutting teachers, not cutting services, without knowing whether or not we would get the foundation aid that we were entitled to. Governor Hochul has also promised to make those cuts going forward. So we're dealing with potentially cuts in state aid, the leveling out of the assessment in Nassau County, this so-called 2%, which we all know is really not 2%, but you have to be a magician to figure out how it actually works. But here's the other fact. So if our budget is approximately $101 million, an increase of $750,000 in the budget represents a 1% tax increase to the community members and the taxpayers. So how do we do it? A couple of things that came up. Leslie mentioned grants. I've been writing grants for the Malvern School District for 12 and a half years now. We've managed to bring in over $3.5 million, which has certainly helped. You know, when my physics classroom wanted updated technology, Toshiba had a grant, we got it. Shared services. Look at the success of the Southbrook swim team for the boys. We didn't have a swim team. Rockville Center sort of had a swim team. We were able to get shared services. Using BOCES for everything and anything possible to get discounted rates. Leslie also brought up relationships. Talking to the people at the town of Hempstead, see what grants they have. Talking to our state legislators, our senators, everybody. Just keep talking. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Everybody did that question, right? Okay. We made it through. Sean, next question, we'll start with you. Special education. What is your overall opinion on the special education program in Lynbrook? And do you have any thoughts on adding ICT in all 3 of your elementary schools in every grade?
I want to start by saying all of my children have at some point either been serviced by our special education department or been in an ICT classroom. And I myself was an ICT teacher back when I was in the classroom. So the needs of students with disabilities are near and dear to me. I think that our district does an excellent job trying to give the students the resources and supports that they need. I believe that the special education department is generous with providing those resources, and we do have a very wide array of resources to try to keep our students in district. More and more of our students are able to stay in district as opposed to having to be outplaced at BOCES and other settings because of the programs that we've been able to add in our schools. As far as the ability for there to be an ICT class in every building, to some extent, as much as that would be nice and ideal perhaps for the students who need that level of service, we do still have to look at the budget. And you know, when our schools do not all have the same size or the same number of students, it's not always something that the district is able to do even if we want to do it. So I would continue to look at it, and I think at any point that it is feasible to do so, it is best to keep students in their home school with their peers that they live around the corner from so that they have the same experience in the neighborhood as they do at home. But as long as we are giving the students every opportunity to learn here in-house, even if it does mean having to go to a different school, then I think we're doing better by our kids than a lot of other districts are.
Thank you, Sean. Leslie, do you want me to repeat the question? What is your opinion on special education overall in Lynbrook and your opinion on having ICT in all 3 elementary schools in every grade?
Thank you. So when I first came to the board, there was not ICT in every school building, and that is something I felt very strongly about. and it has since changed. Although it is not in every grade in every building, budgetary reasons, it is something, as Mr. Murray says, that we will look at, and we do our best, but sometimes it just can't happen. I do think that Lynbrook does a really good job of special ed. I am an ICT co-teach in kindergarten. I have a child in special education in this school district and have worked with special ed students for many years. Also, I have worked with students. I taught gifted program as well and had a child in the gifted program. So I've seen it all from all ends of the spectrum. And all learners learn differently, and it's best to keep children in their home schools whenever possible. So that is always my first priority. Just some things that to note is we have now an extended school year program, so we are no longer sending students outside for the summer, which is amazing. We're keeping them here, and we are now sending some students to a different building, but it looks like we're sending them because they have to, but we're really expanding a program. So a few years back, I said, can we have this program? And I don't remember the name of it, so I apologize, but it gives students an opportunity to graduate with a different type of a diploma so that when they're in the special education program, it expands their opportunities. So yes, it is an inconvenience possibly that they are going to attend a different school, but it broadens what they are able to achieve in the long run. And unfortunately, it can't be in every building just because of sheer numbers.
Thank you, Leslie. Shannon, do you need me to repeat the question?
Thank you. All right, so education is somewhat like the federal government. We have tons of acronyms. So for those of you who aren't aware, ICT is integrated co-teaching. I happen to teach an ICT living environment class. So my partner teacher is a certified teacher. She's certified in special education as well as science. Now, to look at having an ICT classroom in all elementary schools at every grade means not just tripling our staff, but I believe doing 6 times the staff. Now, my daughter's the math whiz, so I hesitate to say that, but it would require not only extensive staffing additions, but also classrooms. How are we going to house all of these children? And if it's the same number of children, yes, but do we have empty grades? Could we add in at every building? Now, I love our special education department for bringing more and more students back. Lots of kids, for a variety of reasons, will be educated out of district because we don't or didn't have the services. That's changing, and that's huge. As Sean said, the child who might have a learning difference can certainly play with his or her neighborhood friends. One last thing, shout out to Pete Toscano. So Pete is one of our teachers here at Lynbrook. Pete was the self-contained teacher, which means a very small class. There were 6 children. There was Pete, a co-teacher, and an aide. One of my children was in that class at Marion Street. The second person I called when that child got into Stony Brook University after my mother was Pete Toscano. So thank you, special ed.
Thank you. Courtney, do you need me to repeat the question?
Yes, thank you.
What is your opinion on special education overall in Lynbrook, and your thoughts on ICT in all 3 elementary schools in every grade? And I apologize, I should have said integrated co-teaching. That's on me.
So as a parent of a child with an IEP, I've been pretty pleased with the services that he's received, and I've been able to be an effective advocate for him. I am a little more weary about his transition to middle school. One thing I learned on this journey with him and prepping him for middle school and having his CSE to enter 6th grade, it really weighed heavily on the committee and how we were going to best serve my child, is that the max number of kids in the middle school setting is 30. I don't know about you, but if I am in a room with 30 11-year-olds trying to get them all to understand the basics of algebra, I'm nervous. And I'm nervous for my kid. No matter, we do have amazing teachers, but even cutting down the number of kids in a single room just by a few could make a huge difference for a child like mine. And so to that end, I think it's not just about how are we best serving our special ed students, but how can we also make them as successful as possible in their least restrictive environment. And 30 kids in a room adds a layer of restriction. So that is something I would hope that as a board could be revisited, the number of kids in every class, particularly at the secondary level. I do also think that a model I've seen in other districts is an alternative high school. There are kids that we don't need to send out of the district, but do have really high needs, and perhaps creating an environment solely for them. And I know we have the summer program, and we are keeping a lot of these kids in-house, which is wonderful and really financially smart for our district. But for kids that can't adhere to a typical 9-period school day, maybe need to have some more independent study throughout the day, that might be something worth looking into as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. Sean, do you need me to repeat the question?
I think I started.
Great. That means the night's almost over if I'm ready. All right, Leslie, we're going to start with you. Next question. What suggestions do you have to make Lynbrook more welcoming to minority groups, including students from different cultural backgrounds and the LGBTQ backgrounds?
I happen to think Lynbrook is a very welcoming community. I think that every community is always striving to do better, and as a board, we talk about what can we do better. And I think we addressed this a little before in the diversity question about hiring, but I think that we develop inclusive curriculum. We're always looking at the books that we're reading and creating different opportunities through clubs and through experiences and trips. So I think we really do a great job here of being inclusive and supportive of all, just prioritizing student input to in the high school, even on the elementary level, just to make sure that everyone's voice is heard and make sure, we're seeing many people move here from different countries. And, it's great. I was sitting on an interview committee recently, and one of the principals was talking about the schools that she worked in, and there were all of these children coming from all of these different countries that she didn't know how to speak the language, so she would pull a peer mentor, and that mentor would really help the children. So that's something that we could do, more of a peer mentorship to make students that move in, feel comfortable. And I'm not sure if that's something that happens in the high school, but I really love this idea. And she showed us this, and I was like, wow, I really love that. So, just looking and thinking outside of the box of ways. But I really think we do a good job of that here. That's why so many people move back to Lynbrook, because it is such a warm, kind community where people really do look out for each other.
Good. Yes, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, thank you. So, where to start? So I always take the term minority groups, I think, a little differently than most. I mentioned earlier that I'm the parent of 2 biracial children. I was widowed when those children were little, so I was their only parent. So I'm very cognizant that oftentimes children may not look like their parents. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But when I tell you that so much has been done in this district in the last 18 years, from the multicultural fairs to the time I got beat out for baking soda bread and had to learn how to make scones because I'm Irish. But I think when you talk minority groups, you're talking about more than simply ethnic background. Diversity comes in so many forms. It's ethnic, it's religious, it's socioeconomic, it's family structure, it's identity. So how do we welcome minority groups? We start with the kindness that is at the forefront of everything Lynbrook does, beginning the very first day you set foot in school, whether that's in kindergarten or in a really fabulous pre-K. So just a few ideas. How do we make it more welcoming? When there is an extended activity after school and you're having it during the month of Ramadan, make the dinner break after sundown so our Muslim friends can eat too. With family structure, recognize that we have some pretty awesome families, young families, who have 2 moms or 2 dads running their household. Realize that everyone is not at the same socioeconomic status. So we have to be really careful about the fees we charge for anything and everything. And lastly, minority groups can sometimes include our special education students. We need to make every effort to include them in the activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Courtney, do you need me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
What suggestions do you have to make Lynbrook more welcoming to minority groups, including different social culture backgrounds and the LGBTQ community?
I think that while a lot of us have had really excellent experiences and always felt welcome, I think there are ways that people can end up feeling a little bit unwelcome or a little bit uncomfortable, and that can be ameliorated in relatively easy ways. So for example, this past, I believe it was December, inadvertently, there was a field trip scheduled at South Middle School for the first night of Hanukkah. And I had a really pleasant conversation with Dr. Lynch about it, because that's a real hardship for, if not, and again, I don't want to speak on behalf of other people, but in terms of people of the Jewish faith, that would have been a real imposition on my family. And we both ended up agreeing, simply by running our school calendar by the DEI committee before it gets board approval, that would make me feel more welcome. It can be simple things like that to make sure that everyone is welcome. And even in light of anti-Semitic events that happened in the last few years, handling those with the utmost care. I believe there was an event at the middle school and at the high school that allows our students to know that that type of behavior is unwelcome. That would also be really important. I know that we do participate in the No Place for Hate program, which is lovely, but there really needs to just be this overall improved sense of belonging for all children. And that's where making people feel welcome really goes back to the social emotional learning piece and putting that at the forefront of our students' experience.
Thank you. Sean, I know you didn't start this one.
No, and you don't need to repeat it either. I
Perfect.
think I'm good. I'm going to concur with what Ms. Kelly said, and say that we really need to very broadly define that term. Like, I don't like the word minority group, because it really depends where you go. As a white male, I was in the minority in the high school that I attended. No one would look at me and say I was a minority group. But what I do think we need to think about is all of the different identities that our students come into school with. They may identify as Black, they may identify as Jewish, they may identify as from a poor family, from a rich family. There's all different identities that our students bring, and at some point in their lives, just like all of you in the audience, you felt alone at some point, or you felt like you didn't belong, or you were not the same as everybody else in the group that you were in. And so I think what's most important for our district to do to make sure that all of our students feel that they are included, welcomed, and belong at all times is to really attend to the culturally responsive and sustainable education framework. New York State has laid out a really wonderful document about how schools and teachers can make sure that every student in their classroom feels like they belong there. It's little things about how you speak, about the types of assignments that you give, just little changes in our behavior as teachers and administrators will go an enormously long way into making sure that every student feels like they belong here in Lynbrook, just like hopefully all of you out in the audience feel like you belong here in Lynbrook, because those are the families who want to keep coming back. There's a lot of multi-generational families here. I'd also like the new families here to become multi-generational families because they feel like they belong.
Shannon, we'll start the next question with you. All four candidates, I had to reword this because of the way it was worded, so I'm going to do my best. All four candidates are involved professionally in education. How do or will you separate your professional career when working on contracts as a Board of Ed member?
Okay, so some people won't like what I have to say, but that's okay. No one will ever like everything I have to say. I'm a taxpayer in this district. Yes, I'm a teacher, and I'm proud to be a teacher. But I am also a woman who raised 3 kids in Lynbrook on one salary, and it was not easy. My youngest is set to go to college. The other 2 have finished. You have to, 1, be fair to your teachers. You need to treat them as professionals. You need to keep the lines of communication open. You also need to be realistic with the constraints of the budget. We do not, unfortunately, have a money tree growing in the back of the high school. So you have to keep in mind, as I said before, every $750,000 to the budget, if it's added, results in a 1% tax increase for the residents and the constituents of the Lynbrook School District. I think the biggest thing is keep the lines of communication open. Listen to the teachers. Establish the relationships. You'll have a teachers' union. You want to have a good working relationship with the people that are on the negotiations team and with, frankly, all of the teachers. It's giving the teachers the recognition they deserve, but also always remembering your responsibility to the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Courtney, do you need me to repeat the question?
Yes, thanks.
All four candidates are involved in education professionally. How do or will you separate your professional career when working on behalf of the Board of Education, when working on contract negotiations?
I think first and foremost in my mind, we are all here to serve the constituents of Lynbrook Public Schools. The teachers, the LTA, administration, Board of Education, we are really working as a team to serve everyone's interests. I also don't necessarily think that as a public school teacher that would change my view on that goal. And if I'm going to make sure that my own relatively young children who have many years to come in Lynbrook are going to have their needs met, having a contentious relationship with the LTA or not advocating for what is truly in the best financial interest of our school district is not going to achieve that goal. So, of course, as a teacher, you know, it would be easy to assume that I'm going to have this predisposition, but it is really important to recall that we're really all on the same side here as a board, with staff, with administrators, and ultimately we're all here to serve our constituents.
Thank you, Courtney. Sean, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, thank you. I think that question really, it questions the integrity of the people on the board. And I know in the 3 years that I've been here, and there are several educators on the board currently, we all know that we need to change hats when we walk into that room. We all know that our obligations as board members are to the community as a whole, and not to ourselves as individuals or to any one group within the community, but to the community as a whole. I know that all of the board members I've worked with have been able to make that separation, and honestly, I have no reason to believe any of the four of us up here don't already and also had the integrity to be able to do so. When you are negotiating contracts with the various units, you have a split obligation. You need to make sure that the contract is fair and reasonable enough to attract the kind of candidates that we want working with our students, with the financial pressures of the community. And I think that our board and our district has generally done a good job threading that needle. It is definitely a needle to thread, but it's something that we do with our administrative team, with our legal counsel. We've been able to do that well, and we have labor peace, and labor peace is really valuable for our students also, but I really don't think any of us up here are unable to check that professional identity at the door and shift over to being a board member responsible for the whole community.
Thank you, Sean. Leslie, do you mean to repeat the question?
No, I think I know. So one of my main roles as a board member is to submit a budget to the voters. And in order to do that, when negotiating contracts, which I think in my 9 years on the board, I think we've done the teacher's contract 2 or 3 times. And it's important to be fair and fiscally responsible. So as Sean said, I need to wear a different hat. So I understand and I can relate to many things to the teachers that I really admire and have great respect for, but I look at you and I have to present you with a budget that is, fiscally responsible. And I have relatives in this district as well who are seniors, and I understand they no longer have students in this district and they pay taxes. So I have all of those things in my mind as well, and I represent them as well as people who don't send their kids to the public schools. So these things are really important when we're negotiating teachers' contracts, anybody's contracts in the district. There's a different hat and a different lens that I have to look at because I have to think about all of the constituents in this district, and I have to keep in mind that we're under the tax cap. So it's not just that we can say, yes, you were wonderful, I have the best teachers, which I do, I want to give you everything, and I would love to, but it's not my bank account, so I can't do that. So, we have to think and we have to always separate, my personal feelings and keep everything fair.
Thank you, Leslie. Okay, we're going to go to our last question of the night, and we'll start with Courtney. Courtney, what do you think is the #1 issue facing the school district, and how will you work to resolve it?
I'm going to think for a sec. So as I was prepping for this, I feel like the same thing kept coming up in all of the ways that kids end up feeling alone or different. And one of those things is cell phones. And I don't really know the answer, but there were so many things. And I was researching DEI, test scores, technology, budget dollars, like all of these things. And I just, in so many ways, the ways that our kids have access to social media during the day, the issues it causes in terms of discipline in the high school, and I'm not saying just this high school, it's all high schools, security, all of these things, it just kept coming up as this little, almost like whack-a-mole thing that, like, if we just knock it out here, maybe we could see like certain academic measures improve. We could get maybe kids that don't feel like they could have civil discourse in their classrooms because they constantly are getting the ping notifications from their Snapchats more involved. So that would be something, and I'm not saying we necessarily need a board policy on it. I did research some of those like magnetic phone locking pouches, but I think that there's something bubbling to the surface here and really in all schools that perhaps that might be one thing that if we can figure out how to manage that better for our kids, that we could see a lot of things bloom throughout our school district. Thanks.
Do you need me to repeat the question?
No,
Okay.
thank you. Honestly, I think the number one, and it might be a little hyperbolic, but almost existential threat facing Lynbrook and all school districts on Long Island is the continual addition of unfunded mandates by Albany with a continual retraction of state aid. We are being forced by people who live and work hundreds of miles away, who have little to no idea about what life is like in our community, telling us what we have to do. And then saying that we have to do that by asking for our taxpayers for more money because they're not going to give us the money to do it. So I really do think that combination of limited state aid in the context of a tax cap and a continual addition of unfunded mandates is the number one issue facing our district. And as far as what I propose that we do about it and what we actually have been doing about it, I'm very active with the New York State School Boards Association. I would love to continue serving as our advocate up in Albany so that when we're putting together our policy and our lobbying efforts, they go towards having more local control over these decisions, having better funding streams for schools, more consistent funding streams, so we're not forced year to year to not know where the money's coming from. And I also have a good relationship with our state legislator who lives right around the corner, and having those relationships I think are really valuable in making sure the legislature understands the needs of the schools here on Long Island, and the budgets and laws that they pass allow us to do the work that we can do the way we know how to do it best.
Thank you, Sean. Leslie, do you need me to repeat the question?
Nope. Thank you. I think I'd have to agree with Mr. Murray. The number one issue facing our schools is budgetary issues, the unfunded mandates and the lack of local control with these issues. The foundation aid, where we're paying 17% to Albany, we're only getting back 12%. Like I said, this is an outdated way this formula, and it shortchanges our district for our actual needs. This is the first year of a fiscal cliff that we're seeing, and we're not going to see any increase like we saw last year. And, you know, we have to really plan carefully. So we have to think and be careful with what we do. And, you know, like I said before, some grants, and we really have to responsibly look at our budget and what we can do. They did restore some this year, but not enough. And, you know, we have fiscal monitoring of our budget, and that's why we have reserves here, and we're applying them, but we have to look at and, you know, fight in Albany.
Thank you, Leslie. Shannon,
Got
do you
it.
need me? Okay, great.
Thank you. I know everyone's saying it's late. You know, along with what Courtney and Sean and Leslie said, I really had the same thing because I thought about this in advance. If I had to name one priority, it's how do we ensure the continuation of the services and programs that prior boards and administrations have worked so hard to carefully craft? How do we continue with those and expand on those in this ever increasingly difficult budgetary world? You know, you look at your grocery store bill. The cost of everything is up. That cost increase certainly trickles down, or trickles up, if you will, to the schools. Having, you know, the state dictate certain programs that schools have to abide by, having the state threaten to cut state aid, having the state kind of hold those aid numbers till the very end that you are forced to use reserves. All we can do, it's been mentioned before, but take advantage of every grant opportunity that's out there. Have working relationships with not only local legislature, but state legislature, with your state senators, with the congressmen. New York State, you would be amazed at how far you can get calling the educational department or even the legislatures and senators' offices. Please and thank you will get you so far because they are willing to help. I think it's very easy to knee-jerk and forget that everyone working up there is a person too. And if you just take a minute to step back and realize they may or may not be the one making the decision, but in building the relationships, that's how we can ensure the continuation and expansion of our services. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we will move to our closing. Right, everyone got a chance to answer that? Okay, it's getting late, sorry. We're going to move to our closing statements, and since we started with Leslie, this time around we're going to start with Sean, and just a reminder, each candidate gets 3 minutes for their closing statements.
I want to once again thank the Lynbrook Council PTAs and the Nassau Region PTA for hosting this event. One of my favorite things to do truly is to discuss teaching and learning, and I was really fortunate to enjoy an entire evening of it here. And thanks also to each of my fellow candidates for all of their contributions to our discussion. Let me close by reiterating my why for continuing to serve on the Board of Education. I've spent a career supporting the belief that all children are entitled to the knowledge, skills, habits, and attitudes that will allow them to pursue their passions and navigate their world. And every child has the right to learn those things from educators of the highest degree. As a member of the board, I've supported policies and budgetary decisions that create classrooms that support students in pursuit of their passions and prepare them for their futures. The Board of Education actually only makes one personnel decision, and I'm very proud to be part of the team that decided to promote Dr. Lynch to the superintendency. He's demonstrated a shared belief in these same values, and we expect him to make the personnel decisions that bring only the best to our district because our community deserves nothing less. As I stated earlier, my work as a Board of Education trustee is guided by my core values. Those values include service to others, making decisions in the best interest of children, continuous learning, humility, and listening to understand. I will continue to share my perspectives as a father, husband, school leader, taxpayer, and proponent of public education with my fellow board members and with the Lynbrook community. I have always expanded my perspective by listening to the viewpoints of others and taking all of them into consideration before making a decision. And I am committed to keeping things in perspective by focusing on what truly matters for our students and our community. For me, this evening's forum is a continuation of the conversation I've been having with the Lynbrook school community since I joined the board 3 years ago. I also invite you to watch all I've had to say over those 3 years on the recorded meetings. I believe doing so will tell you who I am both as a person and as a board trustee. I intend to spend the next 21 days expanding this conversation with the community through my Facebook group and other venues. I encourage you to search and join me at Sean Murray for Lynbrook Board of Education, where you can learn more about me and why I think I am one of the candidates best equipped to continue representing you on this Board of Education. On May 21st, the residents of the community need to choose 3 candidates to serve on the Board of Ed. I firmly believe my background, perspective, and passion are still the right fit for the board at this time. A vote for Sean Murray is a vote to enhance the future of your community and your family. So I hope I can convince you of the same between now and May 21st.
Thank you, Sean. Courtney?
In close, I want to just thank all of you for being here. To the other candidates and the administrators, thank you so much for helping with this event, and thank you to the moderators as well. I also do want to thank our Board of Education. As somebody who does volunteer a lot in the community, it is no small task to continue to volunteer your time and give back to our school district. And I do just want to take a moment and thank Ellen Marcus for all of her service on our Board of Education. So thank you so much. In terms of what makes our board great is that there are people who have really devoted a lot of time to this, and I imagine myself doing the same thing. I want to be here for the long run. My kids are still relatively young, and I have a lot more to give to this district that gave so much to me. And so for that reason, I do hope if I earn your vote, I will continue to earn it for many terms to come. My priority is serving you and serving your children. I think it's really important that we remember that we are all here to serve Lynbrook Public Schools in the most financially responsible way possible, and the smallest constituents are kids like mine who have been so wonderfully served by the choices that our Board of Education has made throughout the years. And I really hope you give me the opportunity to contribute to being a part of that team. That said, I'm having a meet and greet tomorrow at 7 p.m. at Craft in Lynbrook. I would love to see you there. Please come, ask me more questions. I would love to meet you and hear from you. Please show up, vote for Lynbrook's budget on May 21st, and vote for me, Courtney Knack. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. Shannon?
I'd like to start by again thanking our Lynbrook Council of PTAs for hosting the event and the Nassau Region PTA for moderating it. Thank you to all of you here and those of you tuning in at home. Thank you to my fellow candidates, and thank you to my friends and family for supporting me in this endeavor. I am not here to promise the expansion or the implementation of any program that has not been fully reviewed and vetted with regard to what is best for our students, teachers, and community. As a school board member, I will consider every decision in light of my responsibility to those students, teachers, and taxpayers. And that means a careful analysis of all proposed ideas in light of their impact on the budget. I can promise to do everything possible to protect the educational opportunities and services that prior administrations and boards have worked so hard to build, and to fully evaluate all future opportunities and services. I can promise to be as transparent as possible to ensure the free flow of information in both directions. I can promise to be visible, not only in our school district, but also in our larger communities of the town of Hempstead and New York State. I can put my expertise in securing grants, both at the town and state level, to use as a member on the Board of Education. I've had great success in this arena, and I've obtained grant funds in excess of $3.5 million during my tenure in Malvern. I can promise to be accessible to every constituent of the Lynbrook School District. While my expertise as the parent of 3 very different Lynbrook Owls has been overwhelmingly positive, I know this is not the case for everyone. We need to work to ensure that every family's experience with our district is a positive one. I can promise to always ask questions while adhering to a spirit of cooperation and collaboration in all that I do as a trustee on the Lynbrook Schools Board of Education. I have the time, finally, and the willingness to commit to the role, and would love the opportunity to put my energy and talents to work in continuing and expanding on the excellence of the Lynbrook schools. I hope you will consider voting for me to be a trustee on the Lynbrook School District's Board of Education on Tuesday, May 21st. It would be my greatest pleasure to give back in a meaningful way to the community which has given my family so much. But regardless of whom you vote for, you can't lose. Please, please vote yes for the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Leslie?
As our time together draws to a close, I want to express my heartfelt appreciation to each and every one of you, especially my fellow candidates. Tonight's discussion has reaffirmed my belief in the power of community engagement and the importance of collaborative decision-making in shaping the future of our schools. I am immensely grateful for the opportunity to serve as your representative on the board, and I am humbled by your continued trust and support. As we look ahead to the challenges and opportunities that lie before us, I am confident that together we can build upon the progress we've made and chart a course toward an even brighter future for our students. In the coming days and weeks, I invite you to reach out to me with your ideas, concerns, and feedback. Your input is invaluable, and I am committed to listening to each and every voice in our community. Once again, thank you for your time, your attention, and your dedication to the well-being of our schools. Together, we will continue to make a difference in the lives of the students we serve. Thank you and good night, and please remember to vote on May 21st.
So I'd like to take a moment and thank the candidates for attending tonight. As you can imagine, it's not easy to sit up there and have questions thrown at you. So another round of applause for the 4 candidates. Just a reminder, there's 4 candidates running for 3 open positions. Another round of applause for your audience for your great questions and also your kindness. I encourage you to talk it out with family and friends. Did you learn something new tonight that swayed your decision? Did you learn something about a candidate's position? And also to reach out to the candidates to learn more. Just a reminder, the vote is scheduled for Tuesday, the 21st from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. And thank you to Lynbrook Council of PTAs for allowing June and myself from Nassau Region to come in tonight. Have a great evening and good luck.